Hello everyone, I'm Terry Duke, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm taking you back to the Old Realms, the Warhammer Total Conversion mod for Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord. Back when I first played this mod over a year ago, I declared at the moment that Bannerlord outdid Warband in terms of size, quality and ambition. But the mod is still in active development and it's only gotten better since then. In October, the Season of Doom update was released, showcasing a new world map, new scenery, new fantasy species, and a whole bunch of other things. So for this video, I'm going to be showcasing the mod and sharing my experiences from playing the Old Realms over the past month. If you enjoy the content and want to see more of it, as always, make sure to like and subscribe. Now, let's enter the old world. The first massive change is the world map itself, which now much more closely resembles the old world of Warhammer. We have the Empire of Men factions right in the center, the mini-dukedoms of Bretonnia as their neighbors to the west, the vampires in the Kingdom of Sylvania in the east, and the elf kingdoms in the forest to the south. All in all, this is both the most beautiful and most taxing world map I've ever played. Seriously, the map is so detailed, from the beautiful castles, the haunted forests, and the ships on the shore, that the world map is perpetually slow, though still playable. And with these new factions and castles come new scenery as well, especially with the elven kingdoms in their giant trees, but also many new shining cities. You will still find native scenery without having to look too hard, but a lot of it is gradually being replaced, and the mod scenery is simply stunning. But of course, the main new addition are the elf factions, and as far as they go, they feel pretty much complete, with full troop trees, beautiful scenery, and badass looking weapons and armors. In terms of campaign, they tend to be fewer in numbers than other factions, but on average more deadly. Because they're elves, they of course have the most overpowered archers in the game, but their infantry is also pretty overpowered, with their only main weakness being the absence of shields. But if they get too close, that won't matter at all. With the elves also come new magic and character classes, but I'll go over these when I talk about the classes. Besides the elves, many of the older factions have also been expanded as well from the previous mod update. Chaos, for example, used to only be a portal that would spawn raiding parties, but now Chaos have their own infested castle called Brass Keep in the mountains to the north. This effectively gives more power to the Chaos faction to wreak havoc on the Empire, although the castle itself is heavily fortified and doesn't look too appealing to any potential conqueror. Another faction to be revamped are the Beastmen, which features new elite units like the Minotaurs, who are seriously tough as melee units. And of course, with such a massive new map, we also get an indication of what other factions will make their way into the mod next. If the Warband mod Warsaw Conquest is any indicator, we have plenty of room east of Sylvania for the Dwarf and Orc factions. There will also likely be sea traveling as well to reach the northern shores of Norska, where we'll see the main forces of Chaos as well. All in all, this is the biggest, most ambitious that a Bannerlord mod has ever felt, and while there is still a lot more to go, what we currently have is already pretty damn amazing. Which brings me to the new character classes, which the mod actually calls careers, so that's the term I'll use from now on. But one of the main features of the Old Realms is the option to pick a career, which comes with its own skill tree, unique abilities, as well as pros and cons for different strategies when playing the game. Some careers focus on melee fighting, others on magic, some try to find a balance in between, and which career you prefer really comes down to your playstyle. Currently there are 15 careers available, but for the sake of this video, I tried 6 of them to give you an overview. If you're more curious though, I recommend you join the mod's Discord, as they have a link to a guide that gives you a more detailed overview of each career. But in the order that I played them, the first career I went with is Damsel of the Lady. In the lore, these are female wizards that act in a supporting role for the Knights of Bretonnia. So when you play this career, most of the spells you get are designed to heal and protect the knights in your army that do most of the fighting for you. It was an interesting career, but I feel it requires more finesse to really make the most of it, since most of the really cool stuff the lady can do, such as convincing kingdoms to go to war or making peace, is only something you can do when you reach the higher clan tiers. In terms of magic, you can learn from up to 3 lores, including the lore of Heaven, which has some pretty strong attacks, but since the lady herself won't make for a good melee fighter, you really have to learn quickly which spell and career perks make the most of your soldiers. If you'd rather get into the thick of it though, as your stereotypical knight in shining armor, you can also try the Knight of Bretonnia. Damn, the armor looks good. This career is about as straightforward as you'd expect. The Knight of Bretonnia cannot learn magic, so most of the career perks are aimed at either making your cavalry even stronger and cheaper, or making yourself ridiculously strong. One perk that can be activated multiple times in the skill tree massively increases your hit points, really encouraging you to fight up close by making yourself near invincible. One of the later perks that also allows you to upgrade the most elite knights into companions, which also come with their own benefits. But all in all, that's all there is to it. If you want the complete opposite in terms of morality though, you should try out the Blood Knight. The Blood Knight is the Bretonnia knight but evil. with a couple of extra perks. For starters, they have the Vampire Jump, which makes you jump so high you can use it in sieges to instantly get to the walls. They also have the ability to bring back the dead after battle, adding skeletons to your army. And a lot of their perks are aimed at just overall making you a ridiculously overpowered unit. The only drawbacks is that they can't use magic and don't have many perks to make their undead troops much stronger. But if that's not a big deal for you, then you'll definitely have fun. That said, possibly my favorite career, which is also a vampire, it's the Von Carstein. These vampires are not as powerful in melee as the Blood Knight, but they can learn both Necromancy and Dark Magic, which are seriously overpowered. Their unique skill is the ability to turn into a swarm of bats to quickly fly around the battlefield. I did not play this career this time around, but I did last year and made a video on it. Some of the gameplay elements don't work the same anymore, but it's still a comprehensive look at this career. But if the Blood Knight is all melee and no magic, and Von Carstein is a bit of both, there's a third vampire career that is all magic and no melee, and that's the Necrach. The Necrach can learn multiple lores of magic. Most of its perks center on empowering the undead troops, while higher level spells can be absolutely devastating. Effectively, this is a career that really sucks at melee, but always makes it possible to summon dozens of dead soldiers between you and your enemies. They can also bring back more soldiers from the dead after each battle, making it easier to carelessly charge at the enemy, knowing your ranks will always get replenished at the end. The Necrach is pretty badass, but it does require some mastery of its tactics, because while they always make battles extremely messy, because of how expendable the skeletons are, it's by being proactive in that battle that you're more likely to win, and you better hope enemy troops don't get too close. And that brings us to the Necromancer. The Necromancer is the only non-vampire class that can reanimate the dead, and while it doesn't have any of the vampire perks like the jump, virtually all of his perks are aimed at making the undead as deadly and numerous as they can be. And while all evil classes require dark magic to upgrade troops, the upgrade for the Necromancer tend to be cheaper, providing a strong incentive to rely on the undead over actual soldiers. But to be honest, I'm not big on the Necromancer. It's basically as weak in melee as the Necrach, but it doesn't have as much variety with magic. The only really cool thing, in theory, is the Curse's unique ability, which is to summon an undead soldier anywhere on the battlefield and take control of it. So here I am spawning right next to the enemy archers. It's a pretty cool spell, but the Necromancer can still be attacked while you use it, which also kills the skeleton. And the skeleton itself, even with the many perks, just isn't that powerful. So the spell is basically just a way for the Necromancer to fight in melee to make up for the lack of magic variety, but again, because the skeleton is kinda weak, meh. For the elves, there's a few careers like the Way Watcher, which is focused on archery, but for my playthrough I went with the Spellsinger. This is a wizard that can summon dryads, basically forest spirits. They look pretty cool and they're pretty strong too. One of their perks is that they don't react to attacks, so they can still fight even as they take damage. The dryads can be summoned in combat thanks to the career ability, but they can also be recruited after each battle, similar to vampires bringing back the dead. So in my Spellsinger campaign, my strategy was to focus on training some elite Asray archers, and have the bulk of my infantry be made up of dryads, as they are expendable and easy to replenish. And it turned out to be the most overpowered combination I ever had. Seriously, the elf archers are ridiculous. High rate of fire, long range, great accuracy. When I attacked the Beastman Hearthstone, it was an absolute slaughter despite only having 80 men. When I attacked Sylvania, the Dryads ran over the undead like it was nothing. For the Spellsinger, most of the perks are aimed at the Dryads, so while you never have as many of them as the undead, they're not outmatched. The Spellsinger himself can learn from multiple magic lores, so I tried the lore of metal since I never got to try it before, and it's pretty awesome. One of the last spells can summon golden lions to wreak havoc on enemy troops, and it was pretty good, but I didn't get to record it properly, it got too laggy and I had to run away. All in all, the careers in the Old Realms have a lot of variety and already make the mod a lot more appealing than it already was. But again, when it comes to the careers, it really comes down to playstyle. I personally pick Von Carstein for the magic and the Knight of Bretonnia for the melee. In a future playthrough though, I'll definitely be looking at the Way Watcher. However, if you're unsure and you're just looking for something simple and straightforward, you can stick to the Mercenary career, which doesn't offer much, but you can still learn one lore of magic, which sometimes is all you need. And that was the career I picked for the next part of the mod that I wanted to discover. Artillery in the Old Realms existed before the new update, but I never really saw it, and a few times other NPC lords had it, it wouldn't work properly. This time though, I was determined to get some cannons and see what they can do, especially when one lord was using it effectively against me, and I realized just how much potential there was. So in the last part of my playthroughs for this video, I took a mercenary career, I pledged myself to the Empire of Man, completed a quest to unlock the cannons, and then I still couldn't get the cannons. I'm following the guide here, which isn't super clear, but the option to buy cannons just wasn't there, but if that happens to you as well, you can just get them from the inventory menu with the cheats enabled, which is what I ended up doing. You can only deploy one cannon per 50 points of engineering, so I cheated my way to 200 to get a full battery, and oh man. I first tried with some Beastmen raiders, and as expected, the cannons can target enemies from across the map with great accuracy. The only thing enemies can do is stay on the move to avoid most of the blast, or use hills and other forms of cover. But with 4 cannons, it was so overpowered that they never made it even close to my army. It was just that devastating. So then I wanted to put it in full practice. I went to the nearest hearthstone, where there's hundreds of them. I placed my cannons atop a slope, and they started bombarding the camp. At this point, it was so powerful, I went straight to the Chaos Portal after that. Here, the Chaos Horde would be funneled through a single passage, so I lined up my artillery just right. The first issue I noticed though is that the artillery in this mod tends to fire at enemies whether there's obstacles in the way or not, so it looked a bit silly, but I had them hold fire until the first wave was well in sight, and then... 500 men across 2 waves, utterly destroyed. Looking at the stats after the battle, more than 3/4 of them were killed by artillery. My god. Now yes, this is absolutely deadly, but keep in mind, unless you cheat like I did, you're not likely to get more than 2 cannons, and even then it'll take a while for you to get there in a regular playthrough. And as deadly as they are, all it takes is a few heroes wreaking havoc on your army with a few spells, and you'll be quickly swarmed regardless. So they are amazing, but they're not the end all be all. With that said, that's about it for today, so thanks for watching everyone. If you want to see more Old Realms content, or you have other Bannerlord mods to recommend, just let me know in the comments, and I could easily cover your suggestions in future videos. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.